Welcome to WhiskyCast, cask strength conversation featuring news and interviews from the world of whiskey. I'm Mark Gillespie, and this is episode number 1129 for October 5th, 2025. Coming up in a few minutes.
We're just custodians to this, and it's just our pleasure and privilege to be able to be the ones sharing it with the world.
This week, Gordon and MacPhail unveiled the world's oldest single malt whiskey, an 85-year-old from Glenlivet Distillery. I spent some time on a Zoom call with Stephen Rankin, Gordon and MacPhail's director of Prestige, learning more about this unique whiskey and tasting it, too. Our conversation is coming up on WhiskyCast In-Depth, and I'll have my tasting notes for it in the What I'm Tasting This Week department. The news is next on this week's WhiskyCast.
Hey, it's Gabriel from Dewar's Whiskey. Here's a quick tip. Whenever you're pouring great whiskey, especially something like Dewar's 12-year, don't overthink it. All you need is a few glasses and a couple of people worth sharing it with. The rest takes care of itself. Back in a bit.
Crafted with time, shaped by nature, perfected by generations. From Yamazaki to Hibiki to Hakushu, every drop of House of Suntory whiskey is a reflection of where it comes from. House of Suntory, this is Japanese whiskey.
Enjoy responsibly. Suntory Whiskey Single Malt and Blended Japanese Whiskey. 43% alcohol by volume. Copyright 2025 Suntory Global Spirits Import Company, Chicago, Illinois.
Let's get started with the week's news. It's brought to you by the Dalmore. The U.S. partial government shutdown is in its fifth day as I'm recording this, and there's no end in sight. How does this affect whiskey lovers? Well, the Treasury Department's Tax and Trade Bureau, the TTB, is heavily affected by the shutdown. No label approvals for new whiskeys are being processed, and no new permit applications are being reviewed. The only essential employees working without pay are those processing tax payments from distillers, along with a handful of other workers. The receiver overseeing the Uncle Nearest Empire has filed his first report with the federal court. Philip Young says he has found no evidence of financial improprieties by the company's founders or management team, and there's no need for a fire sale liquidation. However, he does expect to sell some unproductive assets, such as the French Cognac estate, and he's reviewing the fate of the company's Martha's Vineyard property. Young anticipates accepting offers to refinance the $108 million debt or selling Uncle Nearest in the first quarter of next year. By the way, the gag order against founders Fawn and Keith Weaver has been lifted. I reached out to both of them this week by email, but did not receive a response. Brioni McNiven grew up down the road from Isla's Ardbeg Distillery, where her father was a stillman. Now she's the first woman to be named Ardbeg's distillery manager since 1853, when the McDougall sisters took over the distillery from their brother, Ardbeg founder John McDougall. Brioni first started out as a tour guide at the distillery, then worked as a brand ambassador in Sweden, and then spent 6 years as part of the whiskey creation team. She takes over officially on January 1st. There's a shortage of Nikka whiskey in Japanese retailers and bars following a cyber attack on parent company Asahi Group. Hackers hit the company's ordering and delivery system this past week, crippling Nikka's ability to fulfill orders from retailers and bars. The drinks business reports Asahi's European operations are not affected. Meanwhile, Nikka is celebrating the 40th anniversary of its Nikka whiskey from the barrel with a limited edition release. Extra Marriage doubles the blending time used to harmonize the whiskey after blending by an additional 3 months. It'll sell in the U.S. for $69.99 a bottle. J.P. Wiser's is celebrating the 200th birthday of its founder with a new limited edition 27-year-old Mizunara finish. Unlike many Mizunara finishes, this one used full-size casks instead of Mizunara inserts. Only 1,000 bottles are available at a price of $599.99 Canadian. Johnny Walker master blender Dr. Emma Walker and fashion designer Olivier Roustung have released their second collaboration, the Couture Blend. Emma selected 10 whiskeys from the Johnny Walker vault to create the blend, including Ghost Distilleries, Port Dundas, and Caledonian, along with vintage Port Ellen and modern-day whiskeys from Rose Isle, Cardew, and Teaninnick. Roustung designed the decanter, of which just 1,500 are available at a recommended retail price of $2,500 each. Compass Box is out with its latest limited edition release. Brûlée Royale Blended Malt is an homage to the classic creme brulee dessert and features a blend of Kleinlich, Ben Rennes, Speyburn, and Ardbeg whiskeys. It arrives at U.S. retailers this week with a recommended retail price of $159.99 a bottle. And Compass Box is known for its unique artwork created by the design agency Stranger and Stranger for years. Now their collaboration is the subject of a unique gallery experience that will be on display during Art Basel in Miami this December. The exhibit will include rare labels, unseen until now sketches, and original pieces of artwork. It'll be on display at the Wolfsonian in Miami Beach starting December 3rd and running through January 4th. You can keep up on the latest whiskey news all week long at WhiskyCast.com and in the WhiskyCast community app. The news is brought to you by the Dalmore.
Hello, Richard Patterson here, Master Distiller, Master Blender for the Dalmore. You know, whenever the team and I are in the world sharing our exceptional single malt, we like to keep in touch with Mark Gillespie and the latest news from WhiskyCast.
Let's check the calendar now and see what's happening around the world of whiskey. The Distillers' One of One charity auction is coming up this Friday at Hopetoun House near Edinburgh, Scotland. Nearly 40 one-of-a-kind whiskeys will be on the auction block. Friday and Saturday bring us the Whiskey Lounge's Rare Finds tastings on Friday night in York, England, and Saturday in Newcastle. The Brandy Library has a great bourbons spirit school on Saturday in New York City. Titanic Distillers in Belfast, Northern Ireland hosts an evening dinner with Saison Dining on the 17th. The American Whiskey Show is in Melbourne, Australia on the 18th, and the Whiskey Social takes place in Toronto on November 1st. If you're organizing a whiskey event, let us know about it. We'll add it to the calendars at WhiskyCast.com and in the WhiskyCast community app. Japanese whiskey began with Shinjiro Tori's vision to reflect the true nature and spirit of Japan. The House of Suntory was founded on these principles, guided by generations of craftsmanship that have transformed time, nature, and precision into something greater than the sum of its parts. Pure waters from the mountains of Hakushu, Mizunara oak shaped by decades of patience, a blending philosophy rooted in harmony. These aren't just techniques, they're a way of thinking, a quiet pursuit of balance and depth. From Yamazaki to Hakushu to Hibiki, every whiskey is a reflection of where it comes from and the hands that shape it. House of Suntory, the founding house of Japanese whiskey.
Enjoy responsibly. Suntory Whiskey Single Malt and Blended Japanese Whiskey. 43% alcohol by volume. Copyright 2025 Suntory Global Spirits Import Company, Chicago, Illinois.
WhiskyCast In-Depth is brought to you by Glendalough Irish Whiskey. Gordon and MacPhail is making history, once again, with the release of an 85-year-old single malt from Glenlivet Distillery. Only 125 decanters of this whiskey will be available at 125,000 pounds each. Over the last 15 years, Gordon and MacPhail has been pushing the envelope with extra-aged whiskeys. This one is a sister cask to the 80-year-old Glenlivet released 4 years ago. Both casks were filled on the same day, February 3rd, 1940. I spent some time discussing this whiskey with Gordon and MacPhail's director of Prestige, Stephen Rankin. Our conversation and tasting runs a lot longer than our usual interviews, but I thought it was worth it to put this whiskey into context.
As you can imagine, it's just incredibly exciting. It's you know, from Cousin Stuart recognizing this whiskey is coming to the right point in time, that it's going to be at its best for its age. And now's the moment. We said, right, and we've been working on this now for 2.5 years, and knowing that this was the point that Stuart said, look, any more than this, we've got to be careful. So it just worked brilliantly. So,
how do you decide with a whiskey this old when it is starting to deteriorate?
There's obviously the usual indicators, which are volumes, volume in the cask, and also the strength. However, what you're looking for is when you start to see significant changes, and then there's also the amount of air in the cask and what level of impact that's having on the whiskey. So the way to do it is you basically take it and look as close to three-dimensional as you can. The reason you can't do 100% three-dimensional or a full 360 is you can't see forward. But what we've got is we've got the current status of the cask, we've got the current status of whiskies adjacent to it, and we've got whiskies, that whiskey and other whiskies going backwards, i.e. we've got the samples from the previous, from its life as it's grown older. So what that tells you is the rate of change. And so you can obviously sort of plot, as it were, or get an idea of how much is evaporating, how much, and the rate of evaporation, but also how much the strength is changing. And of course, the most important part is what's the flavor profile doing? Are you still getting positive contributions from the cask, or is it the cask beginning to overpower it? Is the spirit character beginning to fade at all? Or is the overall whiskey beginning to lose a bit of life and luster? And so these are the things that you're looking at, and then you go, bang, this is the moment. But because it is slow motion, this is why Stuart can say, look, I'm looking ahead, and this is what I'm thinking, and where I'm thinking we're at with this cask. And it's really interesting because, he's had conversations with people who say, I'm wondering if I could buy a cask from you and lay it down. I want it to be 100-year-old whiskey. And they say, well, actually, and what the cask they ideally would like, not that we've done this, but I know it's just one of these conversations, the cask they would like, Stuart goes, well, actually, that cask will never make 100. It's drinking incredibly well now as a 60-odd-year-old or whatever, but that's not going to make 100. That's going to just be overtaken by the wood. It's going to be old, but not necessarily the most best example of that whiskey, and it won't be showing it, at its best, probably at some point in the relatively near future. So that's a whiskey that we're recommending it because it's bottling now, not for keeping, and not that we would ever do that because we don't sell casks, but we only sell the bottled out turn of casks. So, yeah.
Tell me the story of cask 336.
Well, here we go. Right. Did you see that?
Yep.
Great. So, cask 336. You and I, we know each other very well. So, this is just, from my point of view, this is all about real pride. I'm obviously getting to do something today with you that has been through the hands of my great-grandfather and grandfather and uncles, of which my great-grandfather and grandfather and two of my uncles are sadly no longer here to see this, and they would have laid down this cask. And we get asked all the time, of course, did you think this would be a cask that would be 85 years old or 80 years old? And the answer is, no, we didn't know that because nobody had any idea how long whiskey could mature while remaining a really, really fantastic spirit. But we did lay the whiskey down for long-term aging. And because Gordon and MacPhail are very much in the front of that curve, every day this cask has grown older has been a day into the unknown for the whiskey industry, not just Gordon and MacPhail. So that's been so exciting. But it was laid down by John and George on the 3rd of February 1940 with that in mind. And we're just custodians to this, and it's just our pleasure and privilege to be able to be the ones sharing it with the world. So you know about the whiskey industry and how we've got to this point in time, from Friar John Corrs in the Exchequer from 500 years ago, asking for so many bales of corn to be made into aqua vitae for I think it was King Duncan's coronation, wasn't it, in Scone? So it was. It's from that point in the Scotland sort of history with aqua vitae, ushkava, ushke, ushki, whiskey has come about. So, and of course, we're based in the heart of Speyside, as you know. in Elgin, and we are surrounded by over 50% of Scotland's distilleries. And one of the very first to take out a license, a formal license in 1824, was, of course, Glenlivet. And Glenlivet was a family-owned venture, and it remained a family-owned venture into the 1950s. And then 1940, it was two family businesses engaging in commerce together that saw the unveiling of this cask. However, I'm going to take you to that very moment. Could you imagine what a action of hope that was? You're using the last peacetime harvest before the outbreak of World War II. You've dried the barley, and it's about to be used to make spirit. The dark clouds were over Europe. Poland had been invaded, and we were sitting in a situation where our efforts in Europe were not going well. And later in the year, you were going to be evacuating hundreds of thousands of men from the beaches of Dunkirk. You didn't know what flag would be flying over your nation in the months and year ahead. And yet, two families were engaging in business for the long term that was going to offer, that was a commitment of pure hope and optimism. So, Glenlivet, of course, you'll know the story well. I saw a couple of them behind you on the shelf. And Mark, you and I have talked about our history for a long time, but just as a quick recap, 1895 was when James Gordon and John MacPhail set up the business as grocers, offering a superior product at a popular price to customers who favoured us with their patronage. And we weren't just the average grocer, we were very much selling a broader range of quality items. And that was really important. They described them back in the day as all our goods are of a high class, was the term. So John Urquhart was to join James Gordon and John MacPhail in 1895, and he was to work closely with James Gordon as he came with knowledge as a whisky broker to the partnership. We were based on the corner of South Street and Culbert Street, and our livery was green and gold. Now, very much the same as the corner store in London, everybody knows today as Harrods. And because we sold that a premium quality offering, we were nicknamed the Harrods of the North. Now, alongside grocery products, we also imported fine wines and, of course, fortified wines. And the most significant, and certainly the most popular, would have been sherry. Now, we'll stick to, while we also imported ports and the like, we imported sherries to bottle on behalf of those companies. And with the empty casks, we would then pass them to distillers. The win-win scenario was we got to buy new make spirit. We already had the casks, which meant the distillers didn't need to supply us with the casks. And we would store them at the distilleries. So they got a rental income plus the money for the spirit itself, while we got a place to store some very fine spirit in our casks. And to this day, from that, we only use our casks. We hand them to distillers, and we've filled with 112 different distilleries throughout our history. And we pass them our casks to be filled. And many are stored at distilleries even to this day. And then when the moment comes, or the distillers advise us they need the space, we move them to our own warehouse portfolio, which we have in Elgin and through in Forres as well, where we have the Aromatic Distillery. We've got a number of warehouses there that we mature our stock in. And it's a wonderful place to do so because we live in a bit of a rain shadow. We get on average, fairly even temperatures throughout the year. So we get a wonderful environment to mature whisky. And many people have said of the Gordon MacPhail warehouses here in Elgin that there's some sort of magical property, because even after many, many years, and this cask is testament to it, it still has a good strength. It's at 43.7%, and it's given us in excess of 125 bottles, of which 125 is the number being released. However, we've obviously had stock for sampling with yourself and to use it obviously the events and with media, and of course to let the lucky recipients and purchasers of the whiskey to get a chance to try it. So,
what about that cask was so unusual? It was a sherry transport cask, right?
Yeah, exactly. Do you know what? It's in your box, Mark. You'll have seen you've got one of these wonderful boxes, and in that box, I'd love to know what you thought about this, obviously, because you'll get a lot of this sort of thing coming through, and I'd love to know what you thought about it.
Very elegant
with you. And when we come to taste the whiskey, I think this box reflects the style of whiskey we have. But you'll notice in the box, you also have a very small acorn. And of course, from mighty oaks, from small acorns grow. But this piece of wood was actually planted on your side of the pond. And it was to grow into a mighty oak over 100 years. It was then to be harvested. And they reckon it was harvested around the time of Tsar Nicholas I, being the emperor, being the ruler of Russia. A guy called Dang Zhuo, who was the 7th emperor of the Qing dynasty in China. Queen Victoria was marrying Albert, and your very own Abraham Lincoln had set out as a practicing lawyer in Springfield, Illinois. And that was when they believe this cask was harvested. And of course, then sawn, and then it was the timber exported to Spain, where it was then made into a transport cask and it would have been filled with sherry. And it was to end up in Gordon and MacPhail in Elgin in 1939, full of sherry. And it was then that we disgorged it, bottled the sherry, and passed the cask to Captain Bill Smith Grant for him to fill at Glenlivet Distillery on the 3rd of February. So this bit of wood is in excess of 200, maybe over 250 years old, of which, because this very piece of wood is made from the stave of the cask.
And transport casks differed from bodega casks, right?
They did. They were made in a more robust way. The staves were that much thicker, very much designed to be rolled with some ease. If you go to bodegas, you'll see that a lot of the casks tend to be quite big casks at times. Some of them we've got some of them, and they're over 600 litres in there, which is a bit abnormal, and they don't fit necessarily into your racking and things. But so the transport casks were very much designed for moving whiskey. So in fact, you know all about my grandfather George, the whiskey pioneer, in the words of Charles MacLean, the father of single malt Scotch whiskey, etc. But he was very much a man of who liked to, how would he put it? Well, he started in 1933. He was obviously a man of great persuasion, because he persuaded his dad that he could leave school at 14 to come and join him in the business. And so he's obviously quite talented. But it was through his relationships and this, it's very much an attitude of customer service and always trying to do his best for our partners and those we worked with and customers, and very supportive of that sort of community spirit. It's not just for us to win, but if we can help others up at the same time and succeed, that makes it even more worthwhile. And at one point we filled as many as 28 distilleries, which we were known as the licensed bottlers for them. But we filled many, many more. And it was in 1968 that George came up with the concept of the Connoisseur's Choice range of whiskies. So under one label, to bring many different distilleries of different ages and expressions to those in the world that wanted to explore whiskey, very much for the connoisseur. And it was George who was by his father's side before going into the Seaforth Highlanders that laid down cask 336 that year. here's an example of the sample bottles. The one on the left is actually an example of one from 1943, but again, it was from Glenlivet. And the ledger on the right-hand side, you'll see the top section was us. We'd filled 15 casks, and you see down here, it's called some plain hogsheads. And we filled 15 of them, and it's a bit blurred, but it says from 1939. But then the very next one was at the bottom of the page, said 5 hogsheads, Glenlivet, February 1940. And it says at the bottom, 5 sherry hogsheads. And it was interesting because it's got the fill and the cask numbers and the strength. So it's quite a piece of history. Oops.
Yeah.
So it's got the price as well of what you paid for them. So it's got £401 in total, which would have been a lot of money back then.
Yeah.
Then the one above was 15 casks, where we paid £1,557, 8 shillings and 4p for that. Quite amazing. But
wonder what it would be adjusted for inflation today.
Yeah, I know. It'd be amazing. If money doubles every 10 years, as was the sort of average, and that was 8 decades ago, you could see it, for if 5 casks were £400, it would have been £20 a cask. It would have been, the other way around. It would have been £80 a cask, effectively. 8 5's 40. So you would have had a scenario there where 80 times 10, 800 times, doubles. 80 times 2 is 160 times 2, 320 times 2, 640 times 2 is 1280 times 2, 1400, 1560, etc. So one cask would have, over that period of time, would have cost you probably in excess of £3,000. But of course, it hasn't gone that way. It's not been a linear development like that, fortunately. Could you imagine the price of whiskey today?
Yeah.
But, well, as you know, Mark, we're as curators and custodians of the oldest and rarest single malt whiskies, our unique and almost impossible to replicate stocks of these amazing whiskies, and which include things like this, the most incredible rare expressions and exceptional one-offs, is what Gordon MacPhail's about. And as we've touched on, timing is everything, and it's really making sure that we make sure we do right by the whiskey, is the famous line that I like to use. We do right by the whiskey. And so it's not about achieving a number in terms of an age, it's about bottling it when the whiskey is exceptional, but also remaining curious, because you've got to be brave and you've got to be patient. And when you're in our situation, when nobody else has done what you've been doing and aging whiskey for that extreme length of time, you need to have that curiosity to say, what if we leave it another 6 months, another year? And that's where that trust not just in your own ability and that of the environment. You've got the cask, and of course we can control the environment. For example, these old casks we've put into dedicated mini buns, like stainless steel bathtubs, where the cask sits in, so that if anything happens, the spirit is captured. And so there's an issue, and also means that we don't have to roll it around anymore. We can literally, these bathtubs are designed with forks, so you put the forks in, lift the bathtub up and withdraw it. And then when we come to empty the cask, we can very carefully pump it out, as opposed to just tipping it and disgorging it in case the actual cask broke or began to fall apart and leak in any way. So we've now got total control. It doesn't change the atmosphere, because it still sits in the same warehouse in the same location. It just happens to have, the bottom third of it sits within this bathtub. So it's a unique thing we do for these beautiful casks.
Makes good sense.
Yeah. And as we talk about timing is everything. So very much it's a long-held, non-negotiable in the business, that We're not going to be deterred necessarily by commercial necessity, because if somebody says, look, we need to bottle stuff, we need to do this, there's other things that we've got in our portfolio that we can say, look, these whiskies are drinking beautifully now. We can offer you this. We don't have to just sell it because it happens to be one of the oldest ones, or because it might be able to make you the most money or whatever. That's not the reason. We deliberately make sure that, and that's why I think as a family business, we've got that control down through 4 generations in 130 years. Whereas other businesses wouldn't necessarily have that, because the short-term gains that they can make is more impactful on them and the people there. Whereas we know we're making this decision for the long-term health of the business. And, of course, makes it more exciting, more intriguing for the whiskey drinker, knowing that there's somebody out there pioneering this long-term approach to whiskey maturation. So I think it's what's most important is we always talk about representing 2 names in a label. Gordon MacPhail's reputation hangs in every bottling, but also the name of the distillers, and they've trusted us to give us their spirit. And of course, we put the trust in the coopers and the sherry houses, making sure that their part of the process has been done to the highest possible standards. And when these casks arrive with us, back at this time, it would have been passed on to a cooper to check it over, and it would have been sent up to the cooperage. And I think it was 1947 that Speyside Cooperage started their business under old Douglas Taylor. But they would check over our casks once they had arrived, and we'd taken emptied the sherry from them and sent them on. And likewise, our bourbon barrels came via them. And it's having that trusted relationship that you could make sure that you could believe in the cask and believe in the oak and its coopering. Now, all of these and the samples we take are just exceptional snapshots in time. They help inform and shape our future decision making, and they also provide an invaluable guide for the generations to come. So the casks that we've laid down, they also come with a little photograph of them in the form of a little sample from different times in its life. So the next generation, so Stuart and Richard, for example, they're 10 years behind me. So if I retire and they're still in the business, there's casks there that you can look at the samples and they go, right, we think these are ready now. And they might be sharing it with the 5th generation, and they can explain to them how this has worked. And look, come with me on this journey of this cask through its life, see how it's evolving. And as I say, you can create this picture of where the cask is in its development. In addition, this gives us what we would call our liquid library, which provides us with the opportunity to offer not just our regular customers, but private clients with sort of made-for-your-moment special access to tailored vintages and things like that. They can come in and say, actually, because we've got this back catalogue going to 1940, with a few gaps in it, people could come to us and say, actually, any chance you could do something from a 60th birthday? This year, they might say, I was born in 1965. I love whiskey and I want to share. I would love to have my own bottling, share it with my nearest and dearest friends and acquaintances. Of course, something we can do. And it just gives the people, either through a bottle or maybe they want to do an entire cask, that they could do something that would be extremely fitting to celebrate those really personal moments. But also you get access, if you're one of our distributor's best customers, this is where you get access to understand what's coming next, etc. So anyway, so we've created this in unique partnership with Jeannie Gang, and a lot of people have said, like, why Jeannie Gang? How did you get to meet her? Well, Jeannie's what a talented lady, really impressive. She is a very highly acclaimed American architect, I should say, and artist. And what was interesting is she very much, outstanding in her field of architecture. She's designed the tallest building ever to be designed by a woman. She's designed and built the Richard Gilder Center in New York, which is the Center for Science, Education and Innovation at the American Natural History Museum. She's the Clinton Presidential Center in Little Rock, Arkansas, the American Embassy in Brazil, which is quite significant. She's been recognized by Time magazine as one of the top 100 most influential people in the world. And she's also she's a MacArthur Fellow and a sitting professor in practice at the Harvard Graduate School of Design as well. So, yes, this lady is impressive. And this is what she created.
Wow.
It is wow, isn't it?
I'm trying to describe it. It's like tree branches enveloping the bottle.
Yeah. So Jeannie's decanter design for this 80-year-old generation's whiskey evokes the idea of a tree slowly entwining a piece of amber and growing slowly up. With 4 separate branches, that brings in that real subtlety of our story. 4 generations of a family slowly growing, working together, branches coming off. Just so happens we've got 4 branches to the Urquhart family underneath George, who are the sole owners of the business. And this upward spiral wraps around this suspended glass vessel that's cradling this precious 85-year-old whiskey, the oldest whiskey ever released. And what was lovely was the American oak informed the branch design, but she wanted to give a nod to the wood used the wood that was used to actually cradle the spirit. And we know this was an American oak cask that was used, the American oak that was made into this transport cask. So really, really amazing. And do you know what? Actually, I think it looks even better in the flesh. So this gives you a couple of sort of close-ups. But she was creating these designs, as you can see in her sketches on the left-hand side. And she was looking at how they came about. Then she was looking at different cuts of the oak and just seeing, trying to get an understanding of what it was. And then, of course, she couldn't obviously create an entire tree, but so there's a point that it stops. And it's just absolutely fascinating. She said the design vision was to celebrate the profound artistry, craft, care, and time alongside nature that went into the creation of this amazing liquid. She said it was of the utmost importance to her that the quality of the whiskey itself be manifest in the design of the decanter. Now, not only are we at the front edge of aged whiskey and the oldest whiskies in the world, but to make this you can cask a bronze structure, that's not complicated. People do that all the time. But to cast a bronze structure and then marry it with a piece of glass that has to fit so exactly within the structure, and this happens to come in 2 parts and it comes together. Slightly complex, but the glass is made from mouth-blown glass, and the tolerance level between the two is unbelievable. It's easy to get the tolerance pretty exact with the casting of a bronze structure, or sculpture in this case, but then to get the glass so exact with it's taken a lot of time and skill. It's been amazing. And the 2 parts come from different sides of the world, and the glass actually has been made in Mexico, and then the casting of the bronze is done elsewhere, and it comes together in Scotland under a company called Galvin, who put it all together. We always try and, with everything we do, we try and use local artisans as much as possible, but it has to be from the people that can actually do it the best. Now, one thing that's really, really important, and I've been in the world of construction, but there has to be a buildability to a design. And Jeannie Gang was the perfect partner because she's this is exactly what she does. It's very easy to come out with amazing looking drawings of things, but if you can't build it, it's a waste of time. But she's used to that. She's used to creating these incredible buildings that are strongly influenced by nature, and they come together to look that in an actual built environment. Well, using that knowledge and then the skills of the people we brought in to help us with the project, we managed to make this buildable, which in itself was amazing.
It's beautiful.
So, but a bit like Gordon MacPhail, it's about creating legacies. So what we wanted to do is, really reflect grandfather, Papa George. And he always said, you read it in our office when you come in, he said, the future is shaped by what we do today. But the second part of that is beautiful. Today reveals what we did in the past. And this is revealing what we've done over 85 years. Now, legacy has been extremely important in the business, as I've said, for all our days. And this legacy relates to both the laying down of whiskies for future generations, so for whiskey lovers to enjoy, but also to locals, to communities. And there's a sense of what we're doing with this one, and we did with the 80-year-old, is sort of paying it forward, as it were. So with the 80-year-old, we partnered with Trees for Life, and their mission is to replant and repopulate the Great Caledonian Forest. So we actually, as part of our initiative, was not only did we donate money from the sale of decanter number 1 for them, actually we had days out with our staff in groups to go and plant trees in the famous Glenafric in the central to western Highlands, sort of slightly southwest or west of Inverness. And it was what a great way to bring everybody together, but to feel like you're doing something for the future. It's people who plant their trees today so that their grandchildren can benefit from the shade of them in the future. That sort of sense, isn't it? It's amazing.
Yeah.
And our partners for this one are American Forests. And people say, well, why American Forests? I say, well, American Forests are the oldest national non-profit conservation organization in the whole of the United States. And they've just got a deep commitment to the protecting and revitalization of oak-dominated forests. And of course, oak is absolutely essential to Scotch whisky. It's the only thing we're allowed to legally mature whisky in for its creation. So now the proceeds of decanter number 1 will be going to American Forests, and decanter number 1 will be sold in November at a special. It's actually going into an art auction, and the reason we're doing that is because this is, of course, as you've seen, a stunning piece of art, but it suddenly brings a real focus from the whiskey world, because rather than having hundreds of whiskey items, there'll be one. And so everybody can very clearly both bid on it and follow it, but also will attract, hopefully, the art world who come together for a very, very unique piece, because this is not the sort of thing that somebody with the skills and fame of Jeannie Gang ever really does. So what an opportunity to own a piece of this incredible woman's artwork, as it were. And all the proceeds minus costs will be given to the forest, to American Forests. So here's an example. So what you're going to get is bottom right picture, decanter number 1 of 125. Then set on the left hand side, you're also going to get, we've actually, after bottling, we've actually sawn the end of the cask off, including the outer rim. So we've taken it about sort of 5-6 inches back. So you get all the staves with it as well. And as you can see, it's a stunning cask end.
Yeah. And
it's got its own bespoke frame. And then top left, you're going to get the framed artwork that Jeannie was drawing to influence and create the actual design. So she's including those sketches that are also going to be framed. And then you'll also get a personalized whiskey tasting hosted either here in Scotland or in the venue of the winner's choice by either myself or my cousin Richard, or even both of us. So something really special there, and it's going to be really quite exciting. So I think, Mark, it's time to pull that little vial out of your...
I agree.
So I'm going to do the same. Now, I'm going to go a little bit further with this presentation, because actually I really want to have, I respect your skills and at tasting whiskey, and you're outstanding at it. And I would just love to sort of get your opinion on it. So
Okay.
This is cask 336. This photograph was taken just after it was emptied, standing proud. It was filled on the 3rd of February 1940 with distillate from the Glenlivet Distillery. My grandfather used to always tell us the wood makes the whiskey. And when this tree was harvested, it had already grown to be over 100 years old, we believe. And it, if the tree could speak, it would be quite remarkable, as we've touched. So I should just say the little acorn we talked about earlier is made by experts at the Wardour workshop. These just are fabulous guys brilliant with their hands, and they've taken our staves and actually gone and using the lights, have gone and made all these individual acorns out of the cask, which is quite brilliant.
Yeah.
So, and of course, an acorn's a symbol of regeneration. So, right, here's a close-up of the cask end, and it's just beautiful the way you've still got all the detail embossed in the cask. It's just beautiful. I'm not sure the little stars and the logo there.
No, it shows up.
Yeah. George and J.G. Smith, the Glenlivet Distillery, 336, 1940, and 111 proof gallons. That's what the 111 is. This is the details. So we bottled it once it passed its birthday. So it's clearly 85 years old. It's 43.7% alcohol, and it's the first full sherry but transport cask. The colour, as you see, it's quite dark gold. There's a very bright amber to it, but it's also, light. When you see it in the bottle, you would call it like light mahogany, but when you see the little vial itself, it's probably more that sort of warm amber, dark gold, some warm amber. However, I'm not going to show you the next page because that's going to lead you. That's the tasting notes. Okay. Instead, what I would like to do is talk through it together and share your views. That's what I would love. The only thing I would say is, when I first smelled this, it took me forever to get to drink it, because every time I was smelling it, I couldn't believe how forward the aromas were.
Yeah.
They were like you just let a genie out of a bottle. 85
very
years,
vibrant,
really vibrant, youthful, vibrant. There's such a wonderful combination of flavor, and this is where I hand over to you, Mark.
I'm getting all sorts of tree fruits.
Yes.
I'm writing this down as I do this. A nice honeyed note, honeycomb almost.
Yeah.
The pressure is on here.
Oh, do you know what? had the joy of being up at a very, very, very special place at the weekend called the Carnegie Club at Skibo Castle. And it was Andrew Carnegie, the famous Scotsman who, responsible for effectively the steel industry and building the railways in America. Carnegie Hall's named after him. And it was part of his philanthropy, of course, that created it. But when we were up there, they've got beautiful old greenhouses, Victorian greenhouses. And in there, they were growing apricots and peaches. And I thought this, do you know what? It was beautiful, lovely plum trees as well. And it was those orchard tree fruits from a nice orange through to these apricots, sort of really intense sort of peachiness for a flash, and then into a plum note. And just, I thought it was heavenly. And it just kept changing, and it kept changing.
I'm getting a little bit of orange oil on the nose too,
which is so Glenlivet. It's just so Glenlivet.
Well, I think it's time to taste.
Let's dig in. I would just say as well, you notice on the nose there's a slightly waxiness, and there's also it begins after a while. It begins to give you some of those subtle wood spices, a bit of cinnamon and a little bit of nutmeg, maybe a wee bit of sort of vanilla comes through. Did you get a wee hint of very subtle smokiness? And I'm really subtle. It's almost like a wee nod to the sort of industrial time, as it were, when these would have had direct fired stills, and there would have been, everything done by hand on site. All the malting would have been done on site.
I do get a slight whiff of smoke now that you mention it.
Yeah, it's really subtle though. Oh, my fear with this whiskey is it gave so much in the nose and it beautifully evolved that I thought, is this when you put it in your mouth and it doesn't stand up to, it doesn't deliver the same, but boy, does it do it.
Well, I hope you've got a dram of this with you.
Well, I've sampled it a lot and it's exceptionally precious. So I've sampled it. Slàinte. I have a dram with me though.
Wow. That's got almost a bitter lemon touch to it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like really ripe lemon, isn't it? It's got that. It's just the fruit is now still fresh. It's not doing raisins. It's not doing that sort of thing. It might do quite a plump sultana, a big juicy sultana, but it's not that dried fruit that you would associate with such greatly aged whiskey. No. It's more like that slightly oxidized yellow fruits or oranges, that sort of level. It's very vibrant still, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
But I was worried. And see, after a wee bit, what you'll probably find you get is, and I certainly got, was moving into those orange oils came through into a sort of intense marmalade, but then it changes. And that took me into that late summer fruits of a bit of cherry, a bit of plum, and the plum was going into a touch of the that polish you get. And then as it disappeared into the finish, it began to be a little bit more herbal for me. But I love the bitter lemon. That picks it up nicely as well. There's something else in there. Do you know the texture you get? And that's when I thought it said, look, if you didn't know this was this age, you would never have any idea it was 85 years old.
No.
It's so exciting. And then there was just a moment that it sort of said, look, here's a little bit of sort of sweet dried tobacco. And you went, okay, there's a bit of age coming through. And there was a little touch of something else. But it was so subtle. It was so subtle.
Just a slight kiss of baking spice. Towards the finish.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. When I first noticed this, my tasting notes on the nose were a book about the sizes of the one that comes with this pack, just on the nose, just because it kept changing. It was beautiful. It was so, and I thought, too good to be true. It's not going to deliver on the palate. And then it delivered on the palate, and then I went, okay, I bet the finish is quite short. The finish goes on forever.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm still tasting the finish on it, even 45 seconds to a minute after tasting it.
Yeah. It just feels like it's never leaving you. But there's both a consistency in that youthfulness and the fruit flavors that it almost all evolves, almost like the playing out of a song or a playing out of a film or something. It sort of starts in one place and it takes you with it on a journey as it evolves. And in the glass, I went back to the glass afterwards, and I just couldn't believe just these gorgeous flavors in the glass. But they began to, once the alcohol and everything had gone, and it was just the compound stuck to the glass, and it was all done. I was like, do you know what? It's still trying to be fresh, but it's now got that maltiness to it, and that slightly dusty bookshelves, old library. You know, even a hint of the extinguished fire or a coal fire that's gone out, and you just get that wee subtle hint of an industrial time. And I just find it quite mesmerizing and quite evocative, or very evocative.
It's amazing. Thank you for letting me try it.
Oh, Mark, I'm so delighted you got to try it.
Thanks again to Stephen Rankin of Gordon and MacPhail, and that's WhiskyCast In-Depth, brought to you by Glendalough Irish Whiskey.
Our story begins in the wilds of County Wicklow, the Garden of Ireland, a place where nature moves slowly and meaningfully. Some whiskies blend in. Glendalough Double Barrel stands apart. I'm Rowdy Rooney, head distiller here at Glendalough, and I personally oversee our whiskey making process from start to finish. We do things slowly, and we do them right. We start with a smooth, single-grain Irish whiskey. We age it in flame-charred American oak for soft vanilla and a honeyed depth. Then we finish it in Oloroso casks from a small bodega in Spain. Casks we season and ship ourselves to make sure the wood is still alive with character when it arrives. That kind of care gives Glendalough Double Barrel its rich layers of dried fruit, warm spice, and signature smoothness. This is a whiskey at its own pace, and it's worth every second. This is Glendalough Double Barrel, crafted to stand apart.
So, want to know what I thought of that whiskey? Well, let's start off the what I'm tasting this week department with the Gordon and MacPhail 85 years old from Glenlivet Distillery. It's bottled at 43.7% ABV, and the nose has touches of tree fruits, honeycomb, figs, apricots, peaches, orange oil, subtle wood spices, and a kiss of smoke with a nice waxy character. The taste is vibrant with bitter lemon, sultanas, marmalade, plums, and a slight hint of garden herbs. The finish is long and luscious with a hint of baking spices, balanced by tree fruits, honey, and a hint of garden herbs. It's amazingly complex, and I'm scoring it 97 points. It's hard to follow that, but let's continue with the latest from Bunnahabhain, the Tourist Moth No. 1 from the Westering Home Collection. This one is bottled at 55.9% ABV, and the nose is full of blackberries, plums, black cherries, almonds, and a hint of clove. The taste has notes of cinnamon candies, toffee, figs, hazelnut, hints of garden herbs, and honey, while the finish has soft spices that linger nicely with a hint of brine. I'm scoring the Bunnahabhain Tourist Moth No. 1 a 92. And let's wrap up with the new Buchanan's Green Seal from Diageo. This blended scotch is bottled at the usual 40% ABV. The nose has touches of citrus fruits, creme brulee, and honey. The taste is fruity and tart with lemon and lime notes balanced by white pepper, honey, and vanilla. The finish is long and citrusy. I wish this one had been bottled at a higher strength than 40%, but it is what it is. I'm scoring the Buchanan's Green Seal a 91. I'll be adding these whiskeys to our searchable list of more than 3,900 different whiskeys from all over the world. Check it out this week at WhiskyCast.com.
Throughout the years, Dewar's has created some incredible whiskeys, but our new Dewar's 12-year-old, that one's a personal favorite. It's the kind of scotch that earns praise from the pros, but still feels right at home in the middle of a good night with friends. Every pour opens up with notes of vanilla, toffee, baking spice, and a smooth oak finish. It's rich, it's approachable, and it has a way of bringing people together, whether it's around the table, the fireplace, or just wherever the night happens to take you. Look, the glasses may hold the whiskey, but the whiskey, that's what holds the moment. Please enjoy responsibly. Copyright 2025, Dewar's is a trademark. Imported by John Dewar & Sons Company, Coral Gables, Florida. Blended Scotch whiskey, 40% alcohol by volume.
Let's open up the inbox now and see what people are talking about this week in our community segment. Had a great email the other day from Ken Goldenberg in Orange County, California, after our recent shows on the state of the whiskey industry. Here's what Ken had to say. In my opinion, what is happening right now in the whiskey industry, this so-called cyclical cycle or correction, is really no more than what happens with food. When the economy gets tighter, what do people do? They go back to what comforts them. They stretch their dollar by buying groceries at a reasonable price, yet still put something comforting on the table. Or, as we have seen lately with the whole Cracker Barrel drama, they want a place they can go out to eat at and get good home-style food without breaking the budget. In the years that I have listened to your wonderful podcast, 15, I think, I honestly think the whiskey industry as a whole has gotten full of itself and thinking they can do no wrong, and that folks will pay exorbitant prices for these special releases or expressions. And yet, some of the best whiskey can often be had for under $30 to $35, sometimes much less. These are the comfort whiskey brands, the ones the vast majority of whiskey drinkers buy. And instead of plunking down a princely sum for something they may not even like, they stick to what they know and love and at a price that makes their wallet happy. Maybe it's time the whiskey industry takes a hard look in the mirror. Thanks, and cheers as always, Ken. Ken, thank you for your email. Maybe it is time for that look in the mirror. If there is something you'd like to share with whiskey lovers around the world, download the free WhiskyCast community app from your app store and join the conversation. You can also find us on social media. Look for WhiskyCast on X, Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram, and Facebook. Our email address is comments@whiskycast.com. Let's close out the show now with Behind the Label, our look at the history, science, and people who make whiskey unique. You heard me refer to the cask used for Gordon and MacPhail's 85-year-old single malt as a sherry transport cask. Let's go a little deeper into that. Up until 1981, Spanish sherry destined for export was usually shipped in a transport cask, one slightly bigger than the standard-sized barrels, and built stronger to survive the demands of shipping. Gordon and MacPhail, Berry Brothers and Rudd, and other wine merchants would import those casks and then bottle the sherry themselves. Of course, the casks would then be used for maturing whiskey. That all changed in 1981 when the Spanish government, in a move to create more jobs, decreed that whiskey bound for export had to be bottled in Spain. It eventually led to the current state of things, where distillers order casks from Spanish cooperages and lend them out to the sherry bodegas to be seasoned with young sherry for a couple of years. In fact, the cooperages, or tonelerias in Spain, sell far more barrels to whiskey makers than they do to the local sherry producers. If there is something you'd like us to look at on an upcoming episode, just get in touch with us. That's all for this episode of WhiskyCast. You'll find links for the stories in this episode in our show notes at whiskycast.com. That's also where you'll find the latest whiskey news, my tasting notes, the calendar of events, and a complete archive of past episodes going all the way back to 2005. Get in touch with us, download the free WhiskyCast community app from your app store, or find us on social media. We're on Blue Sky, X, Threads, Instagram, and Facebook at WhiskyCast, and our email address is comments@whiskycast.com. Crafted with time, shaped by nature, perfected by generations. From Yamazaki to Hibiki to Hakushu, every drop of House of Suntory whiskey is a reflection of where it comes from. House of Suntory, this is Japanese whiskey.
Enjoy responsibly. Suntory Whiskey Single Malt and Blended Japanese Whiskey. 43% alcohol by volume. Copyright 2025 Suntory Global Spirits Import Company, Chicago, Illinois.
There's something special about opening a bottle of Dewar's 12-year with the people who matter most. It brings out the stories, the laughter, and the kind of moments you don't plan, but never forget. Built on tradition, made for right now, and best when shared. Dewar's 12-year-old.
WhiskyCast is a production of Cask Strength Media, copyright 2025, and comes to you from the charming, yet regrettably dry town of Haddonfield, New Jersey. I'm Mark Gillespie, reminding you that when you drink, please drink responsibly. Thanks for listening.